Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today during the Global Entrepreneurship Week in this information session about the resilient entrepreneur. My name is Faris Alami and I'll be your facilitator for the day. The goal of this session is to really highlight one of the blocks that the resilient entrepreneur covers, and that is the business canvas or the business block. So let's get started. First of all, thanks for joining. I'd like to see if possible, as we welcome you, I'm going to call it the power of knowing your 4x8. And that's really the canvas in general. It's the resilient entrepreneur canvas that was created last year and reflections on the last 20 or 30 years of us doing business and supporting entrepreneurs locally and globally. So it's the resilient entrepreneur canvas. I know that we have people calling from all over the place, and it will be awesome just in the chat or in the, or in the feeder or, in the text or anywhere you'd like to, just tell us where you're calling from, where you're joining from. I know we had people last year, we had dozens of countries join, and I'd love to hear that. And if you're calling from Michigan, of course, we'd love to hear what city in Michigan are you calling from. Just a quick synopsis about me, just so you know who you're speaking with. For those who don't know, I'm originally from Palestine, raised in Kuwait, and been in the US since the first Gulf War. I came after the invasion of Iraq to Kuwait. Initially, I started a t-shirt business, and then I moved into wholesale, beauty supplies, and then I moved to doing some websites and selling on the net in the 90s. And in the early 2000s, I joined Macy's as one of their executive team members, turning around some of their stores. And then I later joined another retailer, smaller retailer, buying or acquiring mom and pop shops and converting them to corporate offices or corporate retail stores. And then went from 1 store to 7 stores in a couple of states. And then since 2003, I'm running ISM as an entrepreneurship development and small business development company, supporting usually the organization that set up entrepreneurial activities in a community. So we usually work with incubators, accelerators, economic development agencies, government agencies, world development agencies to support the launch of programs that could cultivate the ideas of starting a business or growing a business. And that covers sometimes talent, mentorship, funding, and everything else in between. I've been fortunate to work with over 1,000 organizations globally, and it's not possible to fit all of them. And many of them you would never heard of because they're smaller organizations, but some you might have heard of. And here's a sample of some of those. And with that, there are probably 20,000, 30,000 maybe entrepreneurs who've worked with or interacted with throughout the years. And what we've learned from them was a lot. And this is why we're here today. The reach was in over 100 countries. And here's a sample of those countries. And as I was mentioning earlier, we work around entrepreneurship support services. And I like to usually say supporting the establishment of entrepreneurial programs in a community. I want to also limit our conversation because sometimes when I say that, you might think, wow, you've done all kinds of stuff. Yes and no. We usually work around globalization, entrepreneurship, technology, education, and community. So these are the pillars of where the interactions and the conversations have generated from. Therefore, the learning has come from that. And I want to make sure that I highlight that because it's awesome to have. It also has a limitation because it's just around those 5 pillars. I won't bore you with these numbers. You can go to our website and see the most updated numbers, but just to give you perspective, 100 countries touched, over 100,000 advising hours for businesses and leaders and organizations launching programs. We've touched, almost now 10,000 youth entrepreneurs as well. So what's this entrepreneur canvas? What is it all about? Well, it's a program that we developed last year during COVID to support organizations and leaders in their businesses to keep their businesses moving forward. And what we did is really reflected back, what have we been doing over the last 30 years, since 1990 actually, what have we been doing to cultivate the people running their businesses or support them in a way, including what we did ourselves, what we know other people have done, and reflected on what we listened and heard from others and saw them doing. So while many entrepreneurs might not articulate the story the way we're articulating it for you today, this is based on the facts that we have saw of what someone might have said versus what they've done and what we know of them. And this is how we underlined it. Today's session is really designed to go through the business module. So although there's a mindset, the self moving forward, and we covered yesterday the mindset, we're going to cover today the business, and tomorrow we're going to cover the self. And on the last day, we'll cover the moving forward. The idea would be is to really break it down and help you understand and support you in a way to understand what are the details that goes into each one of these blocks, the 4 blocks that we talked about: the mindset, the self, the business, and the moving forward. And what you will recognize that each one of these blocks can actually take a few weeks. And the reality is, yes, we do offer this program in a 5-week program. So therefore, you could have a full week to go through each one of these boxes, and then 1 week to bring it together. And we've done that in 5 weeks. We've done it in 8 weeks. We've done it in 10 weeks. And the reason for that is based on how much time and capacity you have to keep up with what is needed to get there. And what we've learned is most of the time, entrepreneurs have actually done this many times, just not knowing and understanding the framework that they have done or created to be there. So I'm hoping that now that you see the framework and you see that how it works, that you could utilize it over and over in all the things that you're doing. How would this work? It's really simple. Here are some, bullet points, ideas of what goes in each one of them. And as I mentioned, we covered mindset yesterday, so please feel free to go back and watch it. And then we'll cover the business today, and then we'll cover the self tomorrow. So in the business side of things, we're going to cover today, you'll see what we're going to talk about. One thing I will tell you about the resiliency is we noticed that all the resilient entrepreneurs that we interacted with, at least, they really just were good at adapting to things based on the changes that they're seeing. Not necessarily they were happy with it, but they were able to adapt to it. So recognizing what needs to be changed, changing it, and moving forward with it. So let's talk about this business blocks. And please, by the way, this meant to be an information session, so I'm sorry, it's usually not our style to speak like this. I usually like to engage you and ask you questions, and so therefore I'm feeling the itch to ask a question already, because it's been, like 7 minutes that I've been talking, and I'd like to usually have someone speaking by then. So maybe in the chat or in the, in the comments area, please, if you have a questions, if you have a comment, if something sparks, if a word, brings something or inspires you or makes you upset or whatever the case is, please feel free to use that to stay engaged with us through this conversation. So in the business, block, what we noticed is that there were really 4 things that entrepreneurs did that really allowed them to move forward really quickly with limited resources. Now, please remember, most of our work, as you may know, and those who don't know us yet, we work mainly in underserved, underrepresented, immigrant or minority groups. That's usually where our work, is happening. And the reason I bring that up, because the resources in these spaces with these individuals in these communities are limited. So while some communities might have the luxury to be able to just deploy whatever they need to when they need it, the communities that I worked in, specifically and ISM team worked in, usually did not have that kind of resources, not the people, not the time, not the money. So therefore, they were limited to what they had at the time. So with that, this is where the concept's coming from. So if you have the liberty or the leverage to be able to do whatever you want, when you want, as you wish, because of the unlimited resources that you have, please disregard, because you can easily just deploy whatever you want to do and just take the chances learning through the process, because you have the ability and you can afford to make mistakes like that. The people that I worked with usually could not, and they were limited in the number of hours that they had, with the number of people that they could work with, as well as the cash, as well as the resources as far as infrastructure. So what did they do? They might have never came out and said this. And by the way, we have been doing this with them since 1990, right? in the background, as we advised and consulted and mentored businesses, we usually use this framework to really support them. And we took the time last year to put it in a paper so therefore other people can see it exactly the same way we've seen it and reflect on it to use it. I call it kind of like a frame for the window. Without the window, it's beautiful picture still. It's just with a frame, it just gives you specific perspective of what you can or cannot do based on what you see with that frame. So let's start with this. These are the 4 blocks. We're going to talk about what do you have, what can you leverage, what can you offer, and therefore what can you pilot with that offer. I'm going to ask you to do some things with me here. So there'll be some moments of silence, like a minute or two. So therefore you could, take the time to write it in. Please note that because of the purposes of our, work here through this webinar, you might not feel that, but please feel free to pause it for 5 minutes after each one of these sessions and take the time to do it. All right. So after everything I mentioned, please take 5 minutes. So when I say, what do you have? What resources do you have? Take 5 minutes to write the resources that you have. I'm going to give you some insight, obviously, to help you think through what would that mean to you. All right, let's move on. So what do you have? The concept behind this and what we saw is these entrepreneurs, when a crisis happens or when they're getting started and they're limited with resources, whether it's a crisis or not, they're looking to see what is it that they have, what resources do they have. Now, please note, what resources you have, it means your house, right? Because it's a resource. Excuse me. What resources do you have? Your car, right? What resources do you have? Your laptop, your computer. I'm going to call those equipments, right? Or tools. Although you might not want to be doing anything with them, it's good just for you to be aware of what is it you have. And then, of course, you want to write inventory, right? Membership to a chamber, membership to an association, membership to your alumni school, college or alumni community, whatever. You want to just go ahead and list down all the resources that you have. Ideally, I'd like to focus on the products, the partners, maybe the time that you have, maybe the customers that you have. And you might think, first, I have 10,000 customers, not possible. All right. Don't write down all the customers, write down all the categories of customers. You'll see in a minute why I want you to do that. Meaning, well, are they all retailers? Are they all wholesalers? Are they all dental offices? Are they all doctor's offices? What kind of doctor's offices? And I've heard people tell me, Faris, I have just diverse kinds of customers. All right, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that. What's the majority? Now, you might have never thought about it that way because you've just been running, and that's okay. I want you to take a minute just to think about what's the majority. Who comes into your store most? Same thing with yours. If you're doing, this is for business to business. If you're doing business to consumer, what's the majority? I understand that everybody buys your product, but who is the majority? Is it the woman age 35 to 45? Is it a male age 55 to 65? What's the majority? And the majority could potentially be sometimes 40%, 30%. It does not have to be 60%. It does not have to be 80%. It could be 40%. And the reason I say that because the rest of them could be 20, 20, 20, 20%, 20% of this segment, 20% of that segment, 20% of that segment. Well, that's now you're at 100%. And the majority of your customers of the 40% is one category. So please take the time to really think harder about who is really your customers, who really usually buys. When I reflect at my customers, it's clear to me that most of them are really large nonprofits. Occasionally, they're cities or government agencies. Very rarely, when we have one entrepreneur or two that maybe buys our own, services on their own. Usually, it's a large institutions, nonprofits, sometimes cities, sometimes smaller nonprofits that are launching programs in a community. Can an entrepreneur buy from us? Of course they can. We have programs right now you could buy. Do they? Generally speaking, no. And generally speaking, we don't promote it as much either. We really work on those categories. So I want you to think about it in the same exact way, right? Who is usually buying from you the majority of the times? And when you think it through that, whether it's category, people, or organizations, then we'll start talking about the next steps. So first, make a list of all the resources. So those who joined our webinar in the past or joined our programs in the past, you probably have a downloadable workbook that you could work through it. For those who are not, since we sell it part of our packages, please go ahead and just on a piece of paper, just write down what resources do you have and make a list. I have, 100 items of this product. I have 300 items of this product. I have, a membership for this. I have a license for software for Adobe that I have not used, right? Whatever you have, just go ahead and make a list of it. Customers. I have XYZ customer. I have ABC customers. I have these types of customers. Take a minute and do that. I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. Once you make this list, we're going to go ahead and start breaking it down, and you'll see what I mean by that. Okay, so thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate it. I think this will allow you to understand how to utilize this tool rather than speaking theory on it. Now you're really having the tools that you're using right now. So let's go ahead and discuss that. Now that you've taken the time to write the resources, what I'd like to do is just pick one resource, just one of them. And I don't really care which resource you pick. I want you to pick one. And we're going to ask this question: what can I leverage from this resource? Or what can we leverage from this resource? Now, please remember, no right or wrong answer. Leverage, as we all know. Anyone wants to tell me what leverage is? Please, again, feel free to do that in the chat. Leverage, from my perspective, is you don't have to have it. You can just leverage it, right? So now that you're a member of a chamber, you can leverage that to get another membership. You could leverage that to maybe get a discount somewhere, right? Or access to another room or access to another network. So I want you to think about leverage and what you necessarily not have, but you could leverage to get something. I use this example a lot in home ownership. If you own a house, you can go out and leverage your house. You own it to get cash, right? You don't really have the cash, but you could leverage it to get a cash or to get a loan or to get something else, right? You never really accessed it. You never really cashed it. You just use it as a leverage. So I want you to think about, and that's just one example. There are lots of other examples that you could think about in the leverage. You sometimes also use it as, cloud or power or unspoken cloud, right? Because it's giving you this cloud to do something. You are a graduate of a certain school that gives you leverage to have access to certain networks, right? You don't really own the school. You never finish the school, but because you belong to the school, you could now have access to these networks. So now that you did that, I want you to start thinking about what is the one thing. So you go ahead and pick. I know some of you might pick your customers, some of you might pick your suppliers, some of you might pick your office space or your warehouse or your manufacturer or your equipments, right? I'm going to use a couple of examples here to help you think through it. So those who maybe wrote, I have this package shampoo, conditioner, and moisturizer. That's one item that you have. Can you leverage it? Well, can you go ahead and break it up? So maybe the shampoo by itself, the conditioner by itself, and the body wash by itself. Or if they were single, each item by itself, can you package it up? This is what I mean by now we're going to start to figure out, can we leverage it to do something else with it? You might say, well, first, I already have access to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a member. All right. Does your membership allows you, or have you been active in any of these committees to serve, to volunteer, to learn, as well as to provide some insights that you may have? Well, now you want to think through that. What can you leverage from that membership? Did you ever ask for the list of all the members? Can you access all the members? Can you connect with all the members? Be careful, of course, with spamming, because that's the last thing you want to be doing. So think about that, right? You may say, first, I have access to Adobe, but I don't know how to use it. All right. Well, we have the access, but we need to upgrade our training. We need to upgrade our knowledge. Or you have access to the association, but the level that you're at does not allow you to attend certain activities. Well, maybe you need to upgrade that, right? Or you need to get additional training in this Adobe to learn how to use it to create your flyers. Whatever that case is, I need you to start thinking now at what can you leverage. Now, I won't give you the 5 minutes here. We're going to keep moving just so we could have more time for questions and answers at the end. Again, remember, you can always ask as we go in the chat. But I do want you, when you go back and watch this again, to put a timer on like I did earlier and give yourself 5 minutes to go ahead and time it out and make sure that you have a 5 minutes timer to take one resource, just one, and now ask yourself all these questions. Then you take the next resource and do the same. What can I leverage with that resource? And I gave you a few examples: products, I gave you examples of software, I gave you example of associations. Whatever else you could think of, you could do the same way with it. What can you leverage with what you have? Now that we did that, now we could go on and start thinking, can we offer something? So remember, let's take the example of that shampoo conditioner, and it used to be separate and we put them in a package. Can I offer it now? Can I offer it as a package deal? Now, a lot of times people think because you have to put them in a package deal, you have to give them a discount. Actually, I've seen the opposite. I've seen people that price it up because it's a package, because you get it in a certain way, or you get it this extra item with it, or you get the service with it. So you don't have to discount just because you're packaging. It's just convenient for the customer. It's whatever you could think about it, right? Or less shipping, whatever that could be. Once you offer it, you want to say, can I offer this to the customers? Can I go ahead and offer it? Maybe it's a new service. Maybe you never offered that before. So one example of that, we had, one of the entrepreneurs we worked with, without mentioning which city or country that they were in, she used to make dresses. And what she did is she looked around and said, well, I have this extra pieces of, of material that I never really thrown out, but I could never really make a dress out of it, but I could make masks. Well, that's a new service, right? Or a new product. I'm going to make masks that maybe match an old dress that you might have had, or a dress that you just bought last summer from me, or this winter from me. Or moving forward, I could start making this new mask to go with all the dresses that I make, right? So that's something that you could think about. Maybe it's a new service, maybe it's a new product. In the ISM team, I mentioned this, we were always in person, and we had to really move quickly to be online. We could have chosen to say, well, we can't do it in person, so therefore I'm not doing anything. Or we could said, all right, we're going to offer it online. Now, in our space, we had to redesign everything, because you can't just take what you did in person and do it online. Some other places might be a little easier. So modifying your product or service could be part of it. Can you modify it? Do you have to give it all the same way? One example of that would be one of the other entrepreneurs we worked with, is they used to do a full, like group training, and they moved to doing individual training, right? So that's something that they could start doing right away. We had another entrepreneur that was in the retail space, and she decided to do consultation, something new. They never did. Let's look at your closet and see what you should or shouldn't be wearing, because now it's, different times. We had another one that modified their customer segment. They were going after dental offices, or doctors who works on on your teeth. And they said, I'm going to start going to, non-medical centers. I'm going to try to go after, hospitals. I'm going to try to go after, nursing houses. So now they create a new customer segment. So I want to think through that, because now you can start offering them these ideas or these products or these services. So what I'd like you to do is do the same. Take the next 5 minutes. And again, I won't stop for 5 minutes, but I do want you to stop for 5 minutes on your own once you've done this. And you could pause it, as you could imagine, and take 5 minutes to write down what new product or service can you offer? What can you modify from the product that's already existing, or modify from the resource that you have? Remember, what do you have, what you can leverage, what you can offer. So you can do that with any of those things that we did earlier. And then you can think about, what new segment of market can I go and offer this to? And the reason why you want to offer it, because you want to see if there's anyone that is interested, right? You want to say, hey, I have this. You haven't really done it yet. You haven't really packaged those shampoo or conditioner yet. You haven't really upgraded your membership yet. You haven't really gone through the training to do that yet. You're just exploring it. And a lot of times these things happens really fast, could be the same day, could be the same week, could be the same hour. But the process of how you get here is what I want you to learn with us today, because that's the process you can duplicate again over and over. All right, so take 5 minutes and write down, what can you offer from what you have that you can leverage, that you could offer it right now? Again, I won't stop for 5 minutes, but I'm going to ask you to do that on your own, all right? And now we go ahead and pilot, right? So we got 5 or 6 people say, I'm interested, this is exciting, can we go ahead and buy it from you? Well, now you can start piloting that, right? And when you're piloting a product, the reason why I say pilot, because you're really testing, right? You're seeing what they're buying, what they're not buying, what they like, what they didn't like, getting feedback from them. So you sold the shampoo conditioner combination, you sold those masks, you sold that training, right? You sold whatever. Now go ahead and see what is working, what is not working, modify it, change it, fix it a little bit, right? And be aware that it will not be perfect from the minute you launch it. As a matter of fact, most likely there'll be lots of things that needs to be fixed and be changed once you do it. You might also recognize that you might need new partnerships, right? You used to sell directly to consumers, and right now you might be better off going through a channel. We saw that a lot with restaurants. They used to allow people to come to the restaurant, sit down, and eat. Well, no longer can they come to sit down and eat for a minute, right? Now they're changing again. But then what happened is they started, utilizing Grubhub and Uber Eats and all these other platforms out there that allows you to order food. Some of them actually started their own delivery. Excuse me. But yet again, new partnerships can be aligned. We saw some grocery stores aligning with those restaurants to say, hey, if a customer comes and picks it up, they could pick up their also main grocery items. Some of the restaurants started offering some of the basic grocery items that they were buying, because if they weren't going to use the tomato or that lettuce for that day, they were happy to sell it for a little bit more price to recover the cost. So think through that of what you can pilot. Again, please take 5 minutes and think about what can you test, modify, be ready to change, what partnerships you may have based on what you are offered earlier, based on what you could leverage earlier from what you have. So if I take one item to run you through all this exercise, would be what I have is a shampoo and a conditioner or a dress or materials left from making dresses. What I could leverage it with is I could go ahead and combine them, or I could make masks, right? I have this material that I'm using, I can make masks. I could offer it to my previous customers that bought from me because they already have some of these dresses from this material. Or I could offer it to previous customers that bought from me shampoo and conditioner separately, because now I could say they're packaged together. You won't have to come twice, and you could just stock it, right? And save your time and save your energy coming back and forth. And now I could pilot it to say, can I take 5 or 10 customers, call them and see if they would be interested and see if they would buy it, and then get feedback and say, I liked it, but the mask was a little too tight, or I couldn't adjust it, or the shampoo conditioner size that you combined would be nicer if they were more of the travel size, right? So this is where you're piloting and you're testing. If you're a service industry, you were doing in-person training, you started thinking, I have Zoom access, I have Hop-in access, I have all these different tools access. Can I start offering it online? And then you realize, well, you can't really do 5-hour training online. Maybe you do 3 hours, maybe you do 2 hours, right? You start offering it. Then you pilot, you do 3 hours. You're like, no, people actually want 5 hours, or no, people actually can't do more than 90 minutes. So this is where you start developing and evolving with what you're doing. Membership. So you can take any of these things that I just mentioned earlier and start really doing the same, running through for each one of them from A to Z, right? What do you have? What can you leverage? What can you offer? What can you pilot? And obviously, once you pilot and it works, it's a new offering that now you could start moving forward and add it to your products or services that you could be selling. The reason I use the word offer here earlier is to see if you could offer it as a sample, right? Offer to see if there's someone would be interested in. And then once you pilot, you start now offering it as a standard product or service that you offer. Again, take 5 minutes and do that. Again, I won't stop here for 5 minutes just so we can keep this moving. So I used a few examples. I used the dress example for you, so you could kind of see how that worked. I used the shampoo example for you, so you can see how that works. Well, we personally did not work with them, but we heard from them that they used to do all kinds of ingredients that they had, and they realized with the ingredients that they have in their store, they could actually make hand sanitizers, and they started selling hand sanitizers. We had another group that was doing travel, and they decided that they could start doing virtual tours and virtual travel. So, this is again what they have, what they could leverage is the insights of all these different buildings. And then what they could offer is maybe offer a virtual tool. And then what they could, start selling or piloting was piloting a couple of them, and it seems to work. Then they start offering it now all the time. And some of them, as a matter of fact, is now their normal practice to do some of these things that they initially started offering as a pilot, and now is part of their packages that you could buy. And the ISM team experience was the same. Many of you know prior to COVID, we were always in person all over the world delivering programs. And, from that Friday to that Saturday, Sunday, that night, we actually vamped not all the programs. We have over 20 programs of, training that we provide and consultation modules that we provide for organizations to deploy programs in their communities. A lot of those programs in the communities are programs that we have either developed, or we're reselling it, or we licensed to use it from other groups. What we had to do, we picked, the top three at the time, and we picked one actually right away to offer, and then one that we started deploying right away. So there were 2 or 3 programs that we immediately started doing on Monday after the shutdown. And really what we did with it is really modified it really quick, because we knew that it's a different time. We couldn't do it in the same time, and we had to modify the curriculum. So we took those 2 days to modify the curriculum. And you could imagine that none of the curriculum were 100% ready. We just kept deploying it day by day, and whatever the curriculum for the next day is, we worked on it the night before. So we got it all launched. And now we have almost all of our programs, the 20 some programs that we have been delivered in some kind of capacity throughout the last year online. And that's a blessing, because really it was, again, we tested it. We saw what we have. We saw what we could leverage. We have a curriculum. Can we leverage it? Yes. We could modify it a little bit to make it more online. Can we offer it? We offered it to a few groups, and they said, yes, we like it. Then we piloted it for bigger groups, and they said, yes, we'll buy it. And then we offer it standalone all the time. So that's something that maybe I'm hoping that to brag and, about ISM, I'm hoping that to shed a light that you could do the same for you as well. The goal with this specifically, again, remember the canvas has 4 blocks. I covered only today 1 block with you. And this is all about the business. And I hope that this will give you the framework and the reference to make better decisions and save some time and some money as you continue to grow your business or start your business. The one thing I will also mention that sometimes you might want to think about the startup mode versus growth mode. And if you don't know what the difference is, we do have another workshop that talks about this. It's in your schedule. Please feel free to look at the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we're going to talk about that. What's the difference between startup mode versus growth mode? But in a high level, when you're starting up, you're really having limited resources. When you're growth mode, you're looking to get resources to deploy them. Where in startup mode, more resources you get, the more you hold on to. So there's a little difference in how you approach it. And I don't want to tell you as a resilient entrepreneur canvas, which one to use. Depends on what you got going on. It could be an opportunity for you to acquire other businesses. It could be an opportunity for you to get out of business. I'm not sure which one you want to go after based on who you are, what you need. You need to make that decision. So make sure that you put considerations before you make a decision based on what your thoughts are and what you're planning to do with the business. What I like to do is just take this minute to say, please take a minute and write down 3 action steps, or at least 1 action step that you can start doing right now to make an impact and to leverage what we discussed today with those 4 steps within the block of business. And again, if you missed yesterday's session about the Resilient Entrepreneur Canvas mindset, feel free to go back and watch it. Okay, and of course, keep doing, because it's never going to stop. The canvas is, of course, is free to download on the website. So if you go to our website, myisminc.com, and if you go under the Resilient Program, there's a tab that says Products, Resilient Products. And this is a free canvas that you can download. The canvas that you would download will have some helpful hints for you to think through all of this. And that's the sample of what you will get. Of course, you're free to take a picture of it, but of course, we'd love for you to download it in a nice PDF format. And then we do offer these programs all the time, obviously. We're doing it through this week at Pro Bono with, as you can see, a little bit less interaction, unfortunately. But those who would join us in the live webinars, they could get it for more interaction, because we'll just spend the time with you and then in the webinar. And then we have different packages if you want to follow-up calls or anything like that. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we do offer this program in a full package on its own. So if you just want to watch the different workshops and work through the different worksheets and have a community that you could be belonging to, we have a beginner program that gives you access to all these tools and all these curriculum and all these videos and tools for $300. And if you want a little bit of coaching, so a coach that maybe could walk you through when you first start, in the middle, and at the end, for a couple of meetings with you to help you understand and digest how that works for you. It's a little bit more money to allow you to do that, but allows you to have someone on your side. And if you really want to get a full advantage of this program, making sure that all the different coaches, a financial coach, a marketing coach, a business coach, operation coach, all those different coaches come and play a role with you. This is our, our elite package, which basically offers you the 6 one-on-one calls with the different coaches that will be accessing to allow you to have full advantage of how you could really do this program. We didn't talk about financials here, but that's one of the things that we will talk about, obviously, in the Resilient Entrepreneur Program options. Because when you're in the elite program, we definitely want to talk about what do you have from cash? What can you leverage from cash, or loans, all those things. I don't want to be like an informational person, so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of what we're offering right now. Now, of course, we have, as I mentioned, 20 other programs on our website. And if you're an incubator, accelerator, or economic development agency, or government agency, or a city government agency that is looking to deploy a program in your community, that's really what we specialize in, and mainly in the underserved communities. We would love to talk to you to showcase for you what are some of the programs that are out there today, not only ours, but what we're aware of, because we've been in this space for 30 some years, and would love to partner with you to deploy a program in your community or design one with you in your community. Our experience has been, most of the time you don't really need to design something, because there are many of them out there. You could deploy one really quick just to see what's going on, and then you could decide if it's time to modify or edit or create a new one. That's also possible. This is my contact information. If you want to bring your camera up to the screen, it should allow you, a little pop-up should come up, and it'll allow you to download my contact. And of course, without your feedback, we wouldn't be here today. And because of you, we're here today. So I ask you to please bring your camera back again. Take as you get closer, a link should show up. Please feel free to link in and give us some of your thoughts on the shop today. Thanks a lot for being with us. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll stick around for any questions or comments in the chat. In case you missed parts of it, remember, this is the Resilient Entrepreneur Canvas. We covered today the business block, which is one of the 4 blocks in the canvas. My name is Faris Alami, and it was an honor for me to be here with you.